Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Andrea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Elisabeth Potaczek, the owner of Soul Echo Yoga based in Appleton, Wisconsin. Elisabeth brings a truly holistic approach to everything she teaches by blending her backgrounds in yoga, massage, and functional personal training to create classes that are unique and have intention behind every movement. Her specialties include functional yoga, meditation, yoga nidra, and pre- and postnatal yoga, all grounded in the belief that mindful movement is one of the best ways to take care of your body and mind. Whether you would consider yourself a yogi or not, we believe that you'll learn a lot in these episodes as we discuss the history of yoga, styles, myths, and numerous benefits of yoga. When she's not teaching, you'll likely find Elisabeth hiking, strength training, reading a good book, cozying up with her 2 rescue cats, Olive and Remy, or joyfully preparing for a baby in early 2026 with her husband. Okay, it's time for you to meet Elisabeth.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We're excited to have Elisabeth back here from Soul Echo Yoga. Welcome back, Elisabeth.
Thanks for having me.
We had a really great conversation in our first episode, really kind of, telling your story, which is very interesting too, but also like kind of some history of yoga and some really good conversation about kind of the spirituality and, the religious, perspectives. Everybody comes into it for different reasons. Everybody's looking for different things. And yoga really can be for everybody. So I really enjoyed that conversation. I think it'll really help a lot of people. In this one, I think we really want to break it down a little bit more for especially people who are really tight, overall, people who are beginners. I think a lot of people feel like yoga is just for somebody who's more flexible, like even right away, or just somebody who's fit. Can we just talk about these things? Because like in the last episode, yoga is for everybody, whether you're a runner, whether you're just starting off in exercise, anything. So what recommendations would you have for someone who is maybe not flexible, who is a beginner? Where would they even start?
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. I love people who are brand new to yoga. I love when I tell people that I'm a yoga instructor and like, oh, that's just not for me.
You're like, sit down, let's talk.
Challenge accepted. And I don't know, like if everybody's seen the Batman and Robin meme where it's like, I can't touch my toes. And he's like slapping him across the face. Like, that's why you go to yoga. Yeah. Like, I feel like that all the time. Cause when I started yoga, I was a runner. And so I wasn't flexible either. So our conversation has really brought me back to that. I could not bring my leg forward from down dog to lunge when I started practicing. And I swore I would never forget that feeling, and I have. And so now, thank you for reminding me that you just have to keep that beginner's mindset. So yeah, yoga does hurt. It's uncomfortable because we stand in weird postures, and so what I love so much about yoga, and it is the only physical practice other than martial arts where you can build strength, flexibility, and stability all at the same time because of how you're moving and using your body. It's intentional. And I love people who can't touch their toes. I love people who have never come to a yoga class before, because then I can show them how to start more easily. Like I love modifying things for people who can't touch their toes or who can't bring their leg forward from down dog to lunge. I love taking people from different postures and giving them permission. Like I always start with the quote unquote easiest posture. And then I give an option. Like if you want to feel more sensation, try it this way.
Yeah.
And then if you want even more sensation, try this. Or even in my vinyasa flow class, which is probably the most advanced class that I teach, I give them permission. Like you don't have to run through the vinyasa if you don't want to. You can hold your plank. You can build strength. You can focus on that. You could, modify it, or you could just take a break in child's pose.
I love that. I feel like that's a lot of Brittany and our philosophy too for beginners or for people who just are getting back into things too. It's like you don't have to feel like you have to do everything all at once. You see somebody in the same class that can do all the things and you're like, oh gosh, I shouldn't be here. No, you should be here. And I love that you give modifications, because giving permission to people to do something a little different is so empowering. And they're going to get there if they stick with it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Do you think most beginners should, if they're looking at a studio's calendar, they should be starting with a class that says beginner yoga?
If that feels good to them.
The reason I ask that is the other classes, they may not know what to expect. Like, especially when we're talking about the terms, right? The terminology, like from our first episode, so much of it is foreign. What the heck does vinyasa mean?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
yoga nidra. Well, that sounds like, I don't know, maybe nap. N starts with N, nap. Well, it is a slower moving yoga, right? But like people don't know what those types of movements mean. So, and I'm also envisioning yoga nidra is the one that's slower, right? Like you're holding poses for longer. Am I correct on that?
Nidra is the nap. You were correct with the
I love
N.
that. I've been around long enough. But I think about the hilarious image in my head, which is also very challenging, is you hold a certain pose and you're like, melt into it. And someone were to look around, everybody's like melting and like basically napping in this pretzel style. And then there's like those two beginners that are sitting there going, this is not relaxing. I can't hold this, And so what are the types of classes that a beginner should be looking for that's going to best benefit them?
Yeah. So most studios will have an actual description along with a name, but like beginner yoga or level 1 was a common term a while back. But reading the description and, if it does have like that vinyasa flow in the description, maybe that's not your thing. Or maybe trying, like I teach a yin class, which is holding the poses for, 90 seconds to 5 minutes, depending on the pose. That's a great way to start because that's more relaxing. You prop yourself up. So I always have 2 blocks and a strap by my mat when I set up to teach. Sometimes, now a bolster always as well. Sometimes a blanket. So like I'm a big fan of props because even if you are an advanced practitioner, you might want a prop on this day. You might have had a mentally stressful day at work and you come to class and you just don't want to hit the floor. You don't want to reach that far, or maybe you sat funny, you were traveling, you're tight from sitting in the car or on an airplane. And so you just don't have the space you normally have. Like I love props. I think props are super, super important.
I think one thing too is a tip, just whether you're going to yoga or anything else too, but if you're a beginner, if you're somebody that's going to a new class, go there a little early and see if you can connect with the instructor and just say, hey, I'm new, or hey, nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so. And by the way, my hips are really tight, or I feel like I might need a little bit more guidance. Could you just, maybe give me some tips or some alternatives I could do because I want to feel comfortable.
And if that feels intimidating for you to do, like I had a class last week and I had a new student to me, but he'd been to our space before, but he was like almost 10 minutes late. And we don't lock the door.
Okay.
My motto is better late than never, as long as you're not coming like 45 minutes late,
Yeah.
5, 10, maybe 15, like traffic, parking, we're downtown. Sure. I get it. I always start my class asking students like, how are you feeling? Is there anything you want to work on?
Oh, I love that.
And if you're newer and you don't know, that's totally okay. I have been doing this long enough. I don't need you to tell me. I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
just
you'll
by
see.
watching.
I'll be watching you. I can see that you need a little work on that. That's okay.
Yeah. And so if they're not comfortable disclosing, I will most likely just, and then I have students who've been coming to me for 2 years plus. And, I started helping them modify, and they kind of do it on their own now. And then they just, sometimes they want it, sometimes they don't. So it really just kind of depends on everybody's personality.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say are the first like 1 or 2 props that would be helpful for someone to have, especially if they're building a home workout area and they're going to be doing maybe a mix of in-person yoga, but then also doing some yoga at home? What should they really have to help make them more comfortable?
Yeah, if you have a limited budget or you just don't have a lot of space, I highly recommend a sticky mat. I still have a sticky mat from Target that I bought for $20. It's, it's not probably environmentally friendly, or it's probably got some weird type of plastic in it, but it was $20,
Right.
and I throw it in my car. It's my car mat. I take it for outdoor yoga, just whatever. So definitely a sticky mat of sorts.
So that's different than a normal yoga mat?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they make like yoga blankets now, which aren't grippy with like synthetic material. So I still have all my mats that are traditional. I haven't transitioned to the blanket, but yeah. So something to practice on. Some people will say you can practice on a towel. Like if you're on the beach, I guess that's probably fine, but I like to have a little grip, because carpeting has a little grip, hardwood has a little grip, linoleum, but like you're going to be like on your knees at points, or you might want a little bit of cushion. So definitely a mat of sorts. And then I always love a block, because a block can be, you can sit on it, you can put your hand on it, you can, it just lifts, it makes the ground come a little closer to you in certain poses. So definitely a block. And if you don't have a block, or you can't afford a block, you can use books. A stack of books. Make sure they're not sliding, but just something to prop yourself up.
Another thing I want to circle back to is you had mentioned that you were a runner. I think maybe off the mic, maybe it was on the mic in episode 1, but you have also shared with us that you worked with cycling and triathlon athletes. So Dre and I have done triathlons. We've been in the, lifting world for a long time. And so it is hard for us to slow down, like we talked about in that first episode. But for someone, whether they are just getting into fitness, they're a busy mom and just feel like they have 15 minutes during nap, that is their time frame to work on themselves. Or for someone who is running a marathon or doing a triathlon and their cardio schedule is so heavy that they don't feel like they have time for yoga. We're going to be discussing the benefits in the next episode and why you really should be prioritizing it. But for you yourself, you mentioned that in your first marathon, you feel like yoga really helped you. How do you find the balance between strength training and yoga when they both have benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an awesome question. Thank you for asking it. So I don't do yoga every day. I rotate. I'll do a lift one day, I'll do a walk the next day, and then I'll do yoga. So it's like a rotation, and I definitely take days off. So and I get the busy schedule. Like there was a point in my life where like everything had to be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was all the time I had for everything. So I get that coming to a class for an hour is not feasible for everybody. There are amazing resources online. Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, free videos, 5, 10, 15 minutes, super accessible classes. I have Interdimension TV with Travis Elliott and Lauren Ekstrom. It's a very highly rated subscription because he kind of grew up in film and media, so he has all that fun tech.
Yeah.
And they have 10, 20-minute practices. The subscription's like $10 a month. So there are online subscriptions, and then you don't have to go anywhere. Like, obviously with COVID, that really shifted fitness, and like I started practicing at home because it was easier and better, and I just never gave up my subscription.
Oh, yeah.
So.
But yeah, and I think your rotation is really helpful of like you sharing that, because for me, it's like I would love to do an hour-long yoga class because, like I mentioned in episode 1, if I'm gonna do yoga and do it well, I basically need to go in person, because if I'm trying to do it at home, my to-do list is screaming at me in my head, and it's so hard to shut it out and find that peacefulness that's the reason why I'm doing it, right? Well, plus the physical benefits. So I love the rotation idea too, of like incorporating it in as a rotation, but also finding a balance. I think the people that would really extra struggle with that are those who have the high endurance athletes, and they're like, okay, well, I have to do 3 hours of bike riding and an hour of running, and like this is my rotation for my training, and then to fit in an extra 45 minutes.
Well, and I think you had said,
tricky.
Elizabeth, off the mic too, that when you were training for marathon, I think you did yoga like once a week.
Yeah.
You know, it's once a week, you know? So, I mean, if you think about that,
it could
that's
be
doable.
Your rest day.
It could be your rest day. Exactly. It doesn't have to be intense.
Plan for cross training, right?
A good plans for cross training.
And so that's always my go-to is like on your cross training days or even on your rest days, because it's really hard for those type A's to rest.
Yeah. So they're doing something.
Finding more of that yin class, that balance of because they're going to be, triathletes and cyclists are going to be drawn to that vinyasa class. They're going to want to move. They're going to want to get their workout in. But it'll be really, really, really important for them to try a yin class or a restorative class where they're holding poses and they're getting into the fascia and they're letting their body rest in that pose.
That is so important, like fascia and everything else. I can't wait for the next episode, because that one is where we're going to talk about that stuff and why it's so important to do that, for sure.
When I worked in Chicago with the cyclists and triathletes, I always told them, so like, you have your 3-hour bike ride. Can you maybe do 2 hours and 55 minutes of bike ride and do 5 minutes of foam rolling, stretching, core, something, anything, like it's 5 minutes. Like, so that was always my give and take, was that like, I get that you're busy. I think the other thing that helps is I have a designated space in my home for my workout, rather than like trying to do it in the living room or the kitchen or wherever
where everything is staring at you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like secluding yourself, making space for that and that only, and just incorporating little bite-sized pieces of it into your already busy schedule. Like, and if you don't stretch, if you don't, take that time, like honestly, like take in some deep breaths while you're making your coffee or between things in the car, like
start small, right? And then grow from there.
Yeah.
One other myth that I'd love to help explain a little bit, it's more explaining than busting, I guess, is that a lot of people avoid or have a hard time jumping into yoga on a regular basis because they feel like it's expensive. As an instructor and as somebody who's gone through trainings and all that stuff, can you explain how the price point of yoga is where it is?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think it's a tricky situation because we as instructors, so like typically if you're going to get a job teaching yoga, you have to have your 200-hour certification, and that costs at least $1,500 just for the training. Then you have to buy the materials for the training. You pretty much always have to take classes with your training, and usually the studio that you're doing your training at will offer free classes for you while you're in the program. But then on top of that, if you want to register with the Yoga Alliance so that people see that RYT after your name, that's $65 a year to maintain. Plus, every 3-year cycle, you need, I want to say it's 16 or 30 some hours of continuing education. And those courses are
and that costs
$500 to $1,000. And if they might be close to your home, they may not. I often travel to Chicago or Minneapolis for trainings. So then you're spending gas money, you're getting a hotel, you are eating out or buying groceries. So continuing to learn and grow, which I highly encourage as a professional, is really important. And it's not cheap. The other thing is, as a studio owner, I have rent to pay.
Oh, yeah.
I have an electricity bill to pay to keep the heat on
Insurance,
and the lights on.
All this other
I
stuff.
have personal insurance for a teacher, but I also have space insurance for the space. So, and then I have a sign permit to put my permit out on Appleton Street or College Ave, and then we have signage for, so it's all those little business, things. So it's a lot easier for an independent teacher to maintain. As a business owner, it's a little trickier. So when you're thinking about like $15 for a yoga class sounds like a lot of money. What else can you do in an hour that would cost the same amount? Like you can't go to a movie for $15 and that's several hours of your time. Mm-hmm. So I think putting it in perspective, or like, coffee, $5, $10, and that's like a quick,
Yeah. Well, and you're not getting the benefits and all that other stuff too. So yeah, I think that's a really good perspective for anybody looking at any kind of price point anywhere too. It's just, you have to think about all that stuff.
The other thing too is I don't want people not to show up to class because they quote unquote can't afford it. So if you are struggling, reach out to me. I would love for you to come sweep my floors in exchange for a free class.
Oh, sure.
You want to scrub the toilets?
Yeah.
Once a week? Great. I'll give you some free classes. Like, I am more than willing to barter and or work with you. Like if all you have is $5 or $10 to give me for a class, like I am more than happy to just have you there. And I'm very willing to work with people.
Well, that's the beauty about working with a small business too, is that there's some room, there's some space for, talking about that kind of stuff.
Because accessibility and inclusivity are huge for me.
Are there any other myths that you feel like you'd like to bust today? Anything else that you feel like that's holding people back from yoga that you want to just open up and have a conversation about?
I love I'm too old, or I can't get off the floor, or my own mother, God bless her, God rest her soul. I taught stretching and spirituality for her at her church with their group, and we couldn't call it yoga. We had to call it stretching. And even though she didn't love yoga, she still came to my class. It was so awesome. I think she would have been more of a Pilates person if I could have gotten her into that. My mother-in-law is, she's in her 80s, and she's always trying to get her younger friends to come to yoga, but she doesn't want to. And I'm just like, Barb, you should come to chair yoga with Kelly on Friday mornings. Yeah. Because that, like, I don't know, there's something fun about giving people that opportunity. And, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I get it. And like, there's so many different styles and.
Well, and I just think community too, especially for the older folks that like chair yoga. I mean, our mom teaches silver sneakers, for example. It's like getting together with other people, similar backgrounds or similar ages, and just working out together, exercising, moving. There is something magical about that. There really is.
And we will be talking about all those benefits in our next episode. It's going to be so good. Especially in that episode, I want to circle back to how you had talked about how yoga is one of the few forms where you can work on stability, flexibility, and strength at the same time. I want to know how to do that. So we're going to be talking about that in our next episode. Before we close this one out, I do want to learn a little bit about your book club. I believe you have a book club. Is that right? Yeah.
So I partnered with Kathy at Yoga Elements. And earlier this year, we did the Let Them Theory with Mel Robbins, and then we did the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So those were like some really fun ones. This fall, we started back up with the yamas and the niyamas, so like the beginning parts of yoga, the first limb, talking about the spiritual and ethical practices that you can take on or look into and deepen your yoga practice, because that's like I mentioned in the last episode, asana, the physical practice that we know is in the fitness world that we have really adopted in the West, is just one element of the 8 limbs of yoga, of hatha yoga. So, and that's just one portion of yoga. There's so many different portions of yoga. So it's
that we will talk about in another episode. Yes.
Yeah. But the book club is just kind of giving people the opportunity who maybe don't want to do the physical practice or who want to deepen their physical practice with learning a little bit more and having an open, inclusive environment to discuss ideas and different things. So it's just a really nice opportunity to.
So do they go to your website to learn more about this, or how often do you guys meet?
Once a month. So you have a month to read one of the agreements and kind of and the book that we chose, that they have like little exercises each week, and we have a Facebook event and we kind of post in there a little bit. So this next book club will be Sunday at Yoga Elements, and we kind of alternate. So like next month in November, it'll be at Soul Echo Yoga, and then December will be back at Yoga Elements. So
how fun. I love it. Another way to bring community together, right? Awesome. Well, we have 2 more episodes coming up. Like we mentioned, the next one is going to be about all the benefits. And I know you guys are some people are probably like, oh yeah, it'd be good for my flexibility. What else is there? We're going to break that down because it actually gets pretty deep into the benefits of yoga. And then in our last episode together, we're going to be honing in on holistic yoga and functional yoga. Those are 2 really big buzzwords in the wellness industry right now. So how do they relate to yoga? We're going to break it down for you. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.